Welcome back to the further misadventures of Pam Bogus in Lost in Time. I'll pick up right where I left off, hopefully. It took a lot of arguing and then negotiating before the three of them could sit down and try to come to terms with their situation. Pam looked over the two pretend Pams. One was wearing her running shoes, while the other had a small stain on her pants leg. Other than that, they both looked exactly like Pam. They both had a Wendy doll sticking from their jacket pockets as well. So, what's going on? Why do you two look like me? No, you two look like I do. I want to know why, too. They each had a coffee cup in front of them. One Pam had refused the offer of sugar or cream, saying, I like coffee in my coffee. This sounded like something Mr. Armstrong would say. So you both claim to have followed the shadow man into the mall. You went into the fitting room, number something, and wound up here. Pam looked at her companions as they both nodded. And now you're here looking like me. So what's going on? That's what I want to know. This came from somebody at the entrance to the coffee shop. Pam turned to see another Pam standing in the entrance. This Pam was wearing a black leather jacket. Standing right at her side, looking as if she'd seen a ghost, or a monster, or a demon, was Sara. Sara was looking from one Pam to the next. You might as well come in and have a cup. This is getting weirder by the second. Pam smiled at Sara, who just looked more scared than ever. Now the four Pams sat around a table, drinking coffee and trying to come to grips with their newfound situation. Sara was sitting as close to her Pam as she could get, fearing if she lost track of her, she'd wind up with the wrong one. She had four cups of coffee sitting in front of her. Each of the Pams had automatically brought her a cup along with their own. Each of the Pams tried to make Sara feel right at home, since they all had a feeling that this was their Sara, who had somehow wound up with this imposter Pam. Pam felt just a bit uneasy about letting this doppelganger have so much connection to Sara. What if it was her Sara and the other Pam was actually an evil faker? Maybe I should try to get Sara to come with me until I find out who this poser really is. Pam hoped this was her inside her own head voice and not heard by the others. Pam looked across at the running shoes Pam and noticed she was looking at Sara in the same way. Pam reached her hand across the table and patted Sara's hand. Sara jerked back like a snake was trying to bite her. Uh, sorry, you look just like somebody I know. So here's what I think happened. We have all been passed through either a portal or a black hole, and we wound up in an alternative universe. So all we need to do is find the portal and jump back into our own time? Sounds easy until you explain how we find this gateway and how we get it to take us back to wherever it is we used to be. We should try contacting someone. Maybe we could get a hold of the bag office and get them to help. My phone's dead. Yeah, mine too. I think I saw a payphone back there. I'll see if it's still working. Sara was looking quite pale. The four Pams and one Sara decided they were getting nowhere. Actually, they didn't so much decide as realize they didn't have a clue as to what had happened or how to unhappen it. I think we should scout out the area and try to figure out what kind of a situation we're dealing with. I was about to say the same thing. That's just creepy. Well, seeing as we all appear to be the same person, we should expect to think the same way. I have an idea. I'm the only one who is wearing running shoes. You have the cool leather jacket. Now you two look exactly the same. Why don't one of you take off your sweater so we can tell who's who? I'll do it, Pam and her look-alike said at the same moment. No, you go ahead, they said in unison. You take off the sweater and you keep it on, Running Shoes Pam said. The Pam sitting next to Pam began pulling her jacket and then sweater off. Well, it's not like I actually bought the thing. All the Pams got a guilty look on their faces. Oh man, I stole this thing. Running Shoes started to pull things off as well. Just wait a second. We didn't steal these sweaters. We would have paid, or rather put them back on the hanger, had we not been thrown forcibly into this situation. So, as soon as we get things straightened out, we can do the right thing. Okay, and now we split up. You two go that way and see what you can find, and we'll go the other direction. We meet back here in. Pam looked at her watch. Well, it's still 2 o'clock. I guess my watch is broken as well. Pam and her look-alike, wearing her cool black leather jacket, began walking along the stores. Black Jacket Pam had a napkin that she was taking notes on. There's an outdoors fun store. They sell anything you might need for a great outdoors. Black Jacket Pam made a note of the location. The pair moved to the next store. Sarah was holding on to her Pam's belt as she went to great lengths to stay on the far side away from Pam. Look at this place. Didn't we nearly get killed in here? Pam asked Sarah. Sarah looked at the store windows and then she looked around the mall. Yes, it's one of the places we were nearly killed at, but the store is in the wrong place. It should have been closer to an exit. Speaking of exit, did you guys happen to see one before we ran into each other? Sarah answered, Nope, we just walked and walked until we heard you guys talking. I think we walked for about an hour. Maybe we just kept going in a circle. This was possible since there were a few side corridors. They didn't seem to belong where they were. The two Pams rounded a corner and stopped. I thought you guys were going the other direction. Holy cow, there's more of us! Pam was looking at two more Pams, but they were both wearing running shoes. Oh, great. And now there's 6 of us. Uh, no, we just left 6 Pams back that way. The two new Pams looked at Sarah, and Sarah tightened her grip on her Pam. As the Pams were standing around comparing notes, a scream pierced the air. It sounded like several people all being pursued by killer clowns or folks with chainsaws and hockey masks. Pam looked over at Black Jacket Pam's shoulder and saw 5 more of herself running from the holiday store. The runners all made a beeline for Pam and her companions. What's going on? She yelled at one Pam as she ran by. Run! They're coming! Was all she could get out as she ran by. From out of the holiday store came hundreds of those inflatable yard decorations. They looked cute and decorative until one of them began spraying fire from its mouth. Run! Pam yelled and turned to go. The Pam, with Sarah still hanging from her belt, tripped as a small inflatable yard gnome ran between her feet, wrapping its extension cord around her legs. She went down hard and Sarah landed on top of her. Pam ran to get her aid along with 3 other Pams. One of the Pams got Black Jacket Pam into a sitting position only to find she was out cold. Her and another Pam lifted Black Jacket Pam between them and started to run. Pam grabbed Sarah and pulled her up. Come on, run! They took off running away from the carnage. Carnage? Well, maybe that's the wrong word. Destruction would have been better, except the only thing being destroyed were a few old Christmas trees that were still standing in the mall. They burst into flames, and soon there was nothing left but a bunch of flaming husks. Pam had to drag Sarah along. An inflatable Christmas dragon swooped down from above. She dodged into a shoe store, pulling Sarah along in her wake. Stay down. I don't think they saw us. The corridor was filled with inflatable yard decorations. They were busy tearing up anything in their vicinity. Sarah crawled over and looked at Pam in the eyes. You're not my Pam, are you? Nope. I think your Pam was knocked unconscious. I saw some others carrying her in that direction. Pam pointed to the far left. You're not trying to kidnap me, are you? No. Look, how long have you known me, or rather, her? 7 months, 23 days. We met in June. Sarah looked at Pam. My mother was killing me, but she didn't really know it at the time. Sarah, I know all about your mom and how we met. It all happened to me the exact same way. Really? All of it? Including the possessed circus elephant? Sarah asked as she wormed to her new companion. What possessed circus elephant? Pam hoped Sarah was just having fun with her. Pam was asked to look into a problem at the circus. It turned out the elephant was possessed by the spirit of an evil clown. Sarah gave Pam a look of incredulity. Are you sure it was all the same? Apparently not. I guess there might be a few minor, or rather major, differences, but we're still basically the same. Pam looked out the front of the store. It looks as if the inflatable maniacs are gone. Let's get out of here before they come back. The two carefully slipped out the door. The inflatable ornaments were still rampaging to their left, so Pam led Sarah to the right. Once they'd gotten far enough away, she looked down at Sarah. So, how did you guys take care of the possessed elephant? You, or rather my Pam, managed to find an elephant trainer who was also a priest. He performed an exorcism on it while teaching it a new trick. What happened to the evil clown spirit? Pam hoped she'd never have to deal with a possessed elephant, but she did want to know how to in case she did. It was banished into a dead tapeworm kept in a jar filled with formaldehyde. Wow. Sounds like you guys had quite a time of it. Pam could hear some voices ahead and hoped it was the rest of her doubles. Yeah, but after that, the circus wasn't nearly as impressive. Let's see if we can find your Pam, as she led her minion twin towards the voices. In an open court, probably intended to hold a bunch of kiosks, Pam found dozens and dozens of Pams standing around looking at each other. Some were in mumbled discussions, while others just looked around as if lost. Pam looked around, but was unsure as to which one might belong to Sarah. Let's see if we can figure this out. She got up on one of the benches. Excuse me, everyone. All the Pams, give me your attention. The assembled clones all stopped what they were doing and they turned to look at Pam. I need to know which one of you belongs with Sarah. Everyone raised their hands. No, no, who came to the mall today with Sarah? All the hands went down. None of you had Sarah with you this afternoon? She told me she had to go with her sister. Something about keeping an eye on her, one of the Pams yelled. Yeah, she said she was going to look forward to bothering her. Another Pam spoke up from the other side of the crowd. Pam looked out at all the faces looking back at her. It hit her. She needed to do something about her hair. Well, if you run into anybody looking for Sarah, let me know. And just how they were supposed to do that was unknown. As they passed through the crowd, all the Pams would pat Sarah on the arm or the shoulder. A few told her not to worry, they'd find her Pams soon. It made Pam feel quite odd. One of the Pams jumped up on a different bench. Hey, anybody have any idea how many of this us there are? The crowd looked at each other. A few started counting, only to find it was near impossible since there was no way of not counting the same bunch several times. It looks like maybe 30 or 40 of us, a Pam ventured. Pam looked around the assembly. Any of y'all have coffee at Ahab's coffee shop in the last few hours? There were a lot of no's and heads shaken. Any of y'all get chased by weird inflatable yard decorations in the last 30 minutes? More no's and more heads shaking. Then there are about 20 more of us out there somewhere. Any idea what happened? How about an idea of on how to unhappen it? My mom told me to be home for dinner this time or else, a Pam said from the far corner. She was still wearing her school uniform with a pair of designer jeans under the skirt. Or else what? She'd look sad at you? A few girls laughed. Others just looked embarrassed. No, she said she'd ground me again. Wow, Pam found this very odd. Paula had complained to Pam on several occasions about getting home in time for dinner, but grounding was never ever considered. It looked as if she had one of the better lives from all of her fellow Pams, and maybe better manners as well. A roar came from the dark corridor behind Pam. Something crashed as a huge creature began making its way in their direction. It filled the corridor and had teeth sticking out in every direction. The tail swiped back and forth, mangling anything still intact as it passed. Run! One of the Pams yelled, and they did. Most took off in the opposite direction from the monster. A few slipped out to one of the side doors. The monster would be inclined to chase after the bigger group. Pam pointed Sarah in the direction of the group slipping away quietly. Follow them. They seem to be a little less emotional. The two took off after a bunch of Pams moving through a Mighty Mart store. Sarah reached over and grabbed Pam's belt. I know you're not her, but I like you almost as much. Pam led the tween along the darkened aisles. The group they had been following slipped along quietly. The sounds of destruction grew faint as they made their way through the store. After a few wrong turns, they emerged from the store by a second exit, or entrance, depending on which direction you were going. Anyone have any idea where we are? One of the Pams asked. The mall, came from one Pam. Movie theaters, over there. The smell of popcorn came wafting along through the concession stand. Oh, look, they're showing flying saucers attack Walmart, another Pam said. Pam thought back to her time staying at the office during that mid-July snowstorm. I hope the movie's as good as the book. Sarah had an especially firm hold on Pam's belt. You notice how some of your clones don't look all that much alike? She whispered. Pam looked around at the others. One had on what looked like a business suit. Another was wearing ratty-looking jeans. Two Pams were wearing lime green sweaters. Other than the clothing, they all had Pam's face, hair, and body. Fire exit, said a Pam in the ratty jeans. Huh? What does that have to do with anything? If we go into the theaters, there'll be a fire exit. We can use them to get outside. Everybody looked at this Pam as if she were some kind of genius. What are we waiting for? Let's go. The dozen Pams all started for the theater showing the flying saucer movie. They walked along the darkened hallway that led to what looked to be several hundred theaters, each one showing the same movie. Well, this is as good as any. The Pam opened the door and looked inside. The theater was dark, darker than the hallway. Even the emergency lights were out. Anybody have a flashlight? She asked the crowd behind her. Ratty Jeans pulled a cigarette lighter from her pocket. I got this. She flicked the lighter with her thumb, and a small flame burst forth. It was barely enough to light their path. You go first. You have the light. A Pam all but pushed Ratty Jeans into the lead. Gee, thanks. Ratty Jeans began making her way along the aisle. Everybody wanted to be as close to the light as possible, so the Pams plus one Sarah all huddled together as they moved. Toes were stepped on and bodies were bumped. Sarah got both hands on Pam's belt, only to discover she was holding on to two different Pams. Uh, excuse me, are you the same Pam I started out with? The Pam on her right said, No, you just grabbed me. Pam on your left was with you when you started this adventure. Sarah let go with her right hand and got it firmly attached to Pam on her left, which was the right Pam. Er, she got a hold of the Pam she was, well, not the first one, but the one she wound up with. She held on for dear life. The floor was sticky from hundreds of spilled drinks. Popcorn was stuck to the bottoms of Pam's boots. It was like walking on soft, fluffy gravel. The smell was making Pam hungry. They managed to find the fire exit. Ratty Jeans pushed down on the exit bar. It went down easy enough. She slowly pushed the door open. It was pitch black on the other side. Uh, it's pitch black out there, she said in a squeaky little girl voice. You go first. She pushed Business Suit Pam out the door. Business Suit Pam stopped just outside the exit. She tried looking around but couldn't see anything. That's when she realized that she had her eyes closed. She carefully opened one eye so anything scary or nasty wouldn't enter her brain too quickly. It's another theater, she told Ratty Jeans, who was standing just behind her with her eyes closed as well. The pack of Pams all squeezed into the door opening. It did sound like a good idea, they mostly agreed. So do we go back the way we came or try the next exit? A mumbled argument ensued as half of the Pams wanted to go back, but the others thought going ahead was a better idea. Well, you guys go ahead. We're staying right here, and then going that way to the exit. We only have one lighter. What do you mean, we? Well, okay then. Since you have the only lighter, what do you think we should do? Let's go see if there's an exit that actually exits. Ratty Jeans began walking towards what should be a fire exit. Pam felt a hand grab her belt from the other side. She stopped walking. Excuse me, listen up. Nobody is to grab anybody else by the belt. I can't tell whose hand belongs to Sarah. Sorry, I was scared, came from the dark. If you have to grab something, grab a sleeve. Only Sarah gets to hold the belt, so we'll know where she is. There was a murmur of consent from all around. Even though not all of the Pams looked or acted exactly alike, they all had an overpowering urge to keep Sarah safe. They made their way to the next exit. Chapter 4. Too Many Pams. This time a business suit reached over and pushed down on the bar. The door swung open to reveal the next theater over. This is getting us nowhere. We might as well head back out to the concourse. The Pams couldn't think of any other options, so they made their way back up the aisle and out the theater hallway. At the door, a Pam was voluntold to take a peek. Sarah was holding her belt, so this must have been our Pam. The hallway was empty and dim. Pam looked up and down before putting her head back inside. "It's all clear," she told the others. She pushed the door open and nearly screamed. There was a group of Pams walking by the opening. The group all jumped. One or two looked as if they were on the verge of passing out. The Pams were so close together, had one or more gone unconscious, the others would have held them up. "You scared the pants off of us." This came from a Pam wearing a dress. "Hey, you guys have Sarah with you," one of the Pams said. "I was wondering where she was." Pam looked at the speaker. "Did she come with you to the mall today?" "No, but she said she was going to meet me here once her and her sister were finished at the soup kitchen." Pam guessed that this Pam was from a really different world. The two bands of Pams merged and formed into one. The hallways between the theaters went on forever. It might have helped if one or two were showing different movies, but they all had the same marquees. Flying Saucers Attack Walmart was showing on every screen in every theater. "I think we should go this way," Business Pam announced at the intersection. "And just why do you think that's the way?" Ratty Jeans Pam asked. "When we came in here, we turned right, and then left, and then right again. Once we entered the theater, we exited to the right and then the back. So now we're heading towards the last theater where we came in." Business Suit said this as if it were clear to everyone. Pam leaned down near Sarah and whispered, "We should stay close to her. She seems to have her act together." Something went flying by their heads and exploded on the wall. All the Pams and Sarah looked in the direction the flying thing had come from. There were 20 or 30 creatures dressed in an assortment of black leather or vinyl, with plenty of chromed studs and dangly bits, all armed to the teeth, coming their way. The creatures all started shooting their alien weaponry at the Pams. "Run!" yelled one of the Pams, and they took off in all directions. Well, all directions with the exception of the direction the creatures were coming from. As they ran, small glowing projectiles went buzzing by them, exploding on whatever they collided with. What the creatures lacked in accuracy, they made up for in the volume of fire. Pam ran along, pulling Sarah behind her. Sarah had a good hold on her belt, and Pam had a hold on Sarah's wrist. It's not that she didn't think the other Pams wouldn't look out for the tween. It was that she felt much more comfortable being the Pam with the minion. They ran out into the main concourse. "This way, quick!" Pam took off running after Business Suit Pam, but lost sight of her. "Shoot! In here!" Pam pulled Sarah into a bookstore. Sarah was going to head to the back, but Pam pulled her down behind a second set of shelves. "If we go all the way to the back, we'll be trapped if those things come in here." This sounded like sound advice. Pam was impressed by her own ideas. Maybe having been near Business Suit Pam had improved Pam's reasoning ability. Sarah looked up at this new Pam. "You seem a bit, no, a lot sharper than my Pam." Pam looked at her substitute minion. She seems okay to me. Then she thought about how Black Jacket Pam was always writing things down. She seems very scholarly. The creatures began walking into the bookstore. All the guns were aimed at the back wall. The creatures passed right by where the two girls were hiding. As soon as the things with the guns had passed their position, Pam pulled Sarah out from behind the shelf. They slipped out the door and into the darkening corridors. It didn't take long for the pair to encounter another group of Pams. Once more, they all crowded around Sarah to be sure Pam was taking proper care of her. I'm getting a bit hungry, Sarah told one of the others. We can find food at the food court, I think. A Pam with kind of ratty looking jeans, but not to the extent of the Pam with the lighter. Pam got over next to her. Do you have a lighter with you? She asked. No, but I have these, as she pulled a set of lockpicks out of her back pocket. Pam wondered what she was getting into in her other lives. The Pams all began walking in the direction they hoped was the food court. This was the opposite direction they had come from, since they hadn't seen anything even remotely resembling food as they'd been walking. They came to six Pams all standing around trying to decide which way to go. Seeing others with an objective, they fell in with the Pams looking for food. All six had on the exact same outfit. Well, outfits. A red blouse, brown jacket, and jeans. They all had running shoes, blue on the right and red on the left. Have y'all had an encounter with a man-eating giant onion recently? Pam asked the mismatched shoes Pams. Yes, but it eats women too, one Pam said. Don't get too attached to those shoes, she told them. The concourse they were following led to the food court at long last. Pam had already checked her watch 6 times, and it was still 2 o'clock. The Pam next to her pulled her cell phone out and tried calling someone. Pam noticed it was the latest and greatest cell phone of all times. Wow, that's some phone, Pam said. I got it from Aunt Felicity, a kind of a bribe to get me to help on her space project. Pam showed her the screen. It does just about everything in the world except make phone calls. Sarah looked around with hunger in her eyes. Man, I'm starving. What's for lunch? Or dinner? There were a lot of choices to choose from. Hamburgers, hot dogs, corn dogs, fish dogs, pizza, Chinese, Thai, Greek, African. If you could fry it, there was a restaurant selling it. Pam found her stomach rumbling as she looked at all the signs showing delicious food that never actually resembled what came on the tray. All the restaurants were dark. Oh man, there's no one here to make food. Pam looked about in desperation. A simple looking Pam stepped out of the crowd. I can cook. I got all A's in home ec. She had an apron on over her jeans. All the Pams, and there were nearly 100 of them, turned and looked at the simply dressed Pam as if she were a goddess. You can cook? Someone asked. They didn't so much drag her, but she did wind up standing at the grill in the Chick-fil-A in a matter of seconds. Pam began bringing her all manners of food to be cooked as quickly as possible. There were buns and chicken patties piled all around her. The grill was gas, but it was taking its time warming up. Hey everyone, mind your manners. Sarah should go first since she's the youngest. This was from a Pam in a business suit, but a different color from business suit Pam. All the Pams moved to the side to allow Sarah, and therefore Pam, as well to move to the head of the line. The chicken was cooked to the exact degree, just the right amount of heat for the exact amount of time. It was juicy without being greasy. The rest of the sandwich, well, that was another thing. Pam's sandwich had 20 pickles, but no lettuce. Sarah's had so many additives it looked more like a salad than a sandwich. All the Pams wanted to be sure that Sarah was well fed. There were a dozen Pams all trying to help out by putting things together. As food was consumed, all eyes began to focus on the coffee shop. Okay, who's been hanging out with Eddie at the office? A Pam asked. A Pam, dressed like most of the others, stepped forward. The main difference was she had on a brown apron over her clothes. I can brew a mean cup of joe if a few of y'all will help out. Within minutes, the air was filled with the heavenly aroma of coffee. The smell of coffee began to draw in more Pams. All the Pams had taken their seats in a semicircle around a Pam dressed in a business suit, but not business suit Pam. The original one, not the sort of business suit wearers. Business suit Pam came wandering in along with a few dozen others once the coffee was romancing the air. The Pam was standing in the middle. Here's what I've surmised. Since arriving in this place, she had a look of authority none of the other Pams were able to accomplish. She didn't look any smarter. She wasn't any taller, although she did look taller. Her hair was just as messy as everybody else. It really wasn't the suit because there were a few dozen Pams in the crowd with nearly identical suits on. Her look, uh, hers looked as if she'd been molded into it. The jacket was perfectly fit to the knees, to just above the knees. The heels gave her just an extra height to look out over everyone else's head. Well, at least the other Pam's. It was in her eyes. She looked like a leader. We've all been brought here through some kind of a time vortex that has rounded us up and placed us in this shopping center from another galaxy or time. We're all Pams, but from different timelines. Each of us is slightly unique due to events that took place in our timeline that never happened or happened in a different way, thus causing us to walk the streets in a different manner. Several of the Pams had a look of awe as they sat enthralled by the words coming from World Leader Pam. Others had a confused look as they tried to creep up with what they were hearing. Many sat there looking around the crowd, trying to judge just how impressed they should be by World Leader Pam. Pam was sitting right next to Sarah. The table was awash in coffee cups, since just about every Pam had brought her a cup. Sarah kept an eye on Pam so she wouldn't wind up with someone else. World Leader Pam went on. Now, being here is one thing. How do we get back to our homes is another. We need to find the portal and make sure that we are sent to the correct home. It would be disaster for you, World Leader Pam pointed a finger at Ratty Jeans Pam, to be sent home only to discover you're now living in your World Leader Pam pointed her finger at Business Suit Pam home. A few of the Pams applauded. Now, to make absolutely certain every one of us winds up in our proper home, we are all going to write down exactly what we're doing and where we were when we were flung into this conundrum. A few Pams began walking around handing out notebooks and pencils. I hope I don't get in trouble for this. Pam told me to go get stationery. I didn't bring any money, so I think I might have stole these. Pam noticed this Pam looked a lot like the Pam who was worried about being grounded again. She looked just like Pam, but something about the way she walked and carried herself spoke of a lack of self confidence only surviving life threatening events could ever overcome. Her school uniform looked sad, if a uniform could look sad. Even the sweater hung from her shoulders like a depressed thought. The jeans looked way out of place, sticking out below her skirt. Pam scooted a chair out. Have a seat. You look tired. Gee, thanks. It's just I'm worried my mom is going to have a fit if I don't get home before dinner. This Pam didn't seem to have an attraction to Sarah. Sarah looked at Pam and then at meek Pam. Have you ever been chased by man-eating rhino gator? She asked. Oh no, I don't get out much. I do read a lot of books though, mostly about electronics. Sarah looked at the outfit. Do you know me in your timeline? Meek Pam had a kind of a blush. I know you live just down the block, but we've never really met. Pam got busy writing down everything she could remember. The light was dim, so she had to put her head right down next to the pencil. Let's see. I was in changing room number 4? No, it was number 5. 6? Pam kept crossing out numbers and rewriting them. When she couldn't remember which fitting room she'd used, Pam did the only thing she could think of. Which fitting room did we use when we vanished? She asked the Pam next to her. Fitting room? I was, I was, I was trying on a pair of pants that I really liked, but I'd never been caught dead wearing in public. She looked down at the tight-fitting jeans she had on and blushed deep red. It was room number 11. Then I wound up here. Meek Pam looked a bit embarrassed about wearing anything so revealing, even though it was under her dress. Pam was about to ask World Leader Pam if she really had to be so precise when one of the others beat her to it. Do we have to be absolutely correct in every little item? I can't remember if I was in changing room number 10 or 12. It is imperative that you have the exact correct location if you ever want to see your real home world again. The room erupted in a frenzy of hard thoughts and scribbled notes. World Leader Pam had stationed scouts out on the perimeter of the food court. They were to keep an eye on things and report anything dangerous to the group. Zombies! Run! Came from the outpost to their right. Now let's be orderly as we run for our lives. No pushing or shoving. World Leader Pam had the entire group under control with just the sound of her voice. Be sure to get Sarah out of the danger area, and don't forget your notes. Several Pams had to run back and recover their notebooks. It looked more like a military maneuver than a mass exodus. Pams, in all manner of dress, moved out of the food court moments before the zombies arrived. Stick together, there's strength in numbers. World Leader Pam was in the center of the crowd as they quickly moved away from the slothering, stumbling, reanimated dead. A few Pams pulled chairs and tables into the pile at the back of the pack, causing the zombies to stumble and trip, which gave the Pams plenty of time to escape. Meek Pam was hanging onto Sarah's sleeve as they went. I hope you guys don't mind me hanging out with you. If you do, just say so and I'll go away. Pam looked at what just might have been her had she not had so many brushes with death, and grew into the somewhat confused but much more confident person she was. Not that Pam had a lot of self confidence, but compared to meek Pam, Pam was a lion. Sarah had to keep adjusting her jacket so it didn't fall off. Just don't let go, Pam yelled back at meek Pam. After 10 minutes running, followed by 20 minutes of walking fast and 5 more of shambling along, the group found themselves in the department store. Man, what I would give for a few hours' sleep. Pam nearly leaned forward and fell onto one of the mattresses. Ouch! This thing is hard. Pam pulled back the covers to reveal a wooden frame where there should have been a bed. This isn't right, she mumbled and clomb to her feet. Meek Pam immediately got busy straightening out the fake bed. Pam wanted to get closer to world leader Pam and ask about how they were going to figure out how they were going to return to their home worlds, but all the Pams dressed for business had glommed onto her, and it was nearly impossible to get close. Pam had a suspicion it was going to be a trial and error kind of adventure. Pam thought maybe she could use Sarah to get close, but no, that would be kind of mean. The Pams wound up in a kind of a campout. They retrieved blankets and pillows from all of the displays, and when these ran out, they went to the shelves. Soon the area around them looked like a giant, well organized slumber party. There were a few tents made from sheets and clothing racks. Somebody grabbed a pillow and took a swing at their neighbor. One of the Pams threw a small pillow across the room, hitting Pam right in the head. Soon there were pillows and sheets flying through the air. The pillow fight didn't last very long. Just about everybody was exhausted from their flight from the zombies. Soon everyone was settled down in an effort to find sleep. Pam checked her watch every so often, only to see that it was still 2 o'clock. This is kind of like old times, huh? Sarah said as she fluffed up her pillow. Pam thought back to their misadventures. When did we sleep in a tent together? When you got kidnapped by Bigfoot. We went to see your Aunt Donna, and then we stayed out in the woods. It was kind of creepy, especially when you got kidnapped. Pam thought back to that trip. It was the last week of summer vacation, and Pam wanted to relax a bit. She wound up getting lost in the woods and then was found by Bigfoot. It took way too long to get back home, and then she got a new, used pickup from her car had been taken apart by a mistaken after it was mistaken for being a wreck. Sarah wasn't with her on that trip, just her and her aunt and half of the bag staff. Yep, just like old times. Pam got busy trying to go to sleep. Someone or something was sneaking about the slumbering Pams. Pam sat up and tried to focus on the sound. It moved quietly. It would take a few steps and then stop. Pam listened with all her power. She tried pushing extra blood to her ears so she could hear better. All this did was make a rushing sound in her head. The thing was moving again. It sounded as if it were getting closer. Pam was alternating between total fear and wondering what it was. Something made a sound like a piece of paper drifting to the floor. Pam turned her head. She envisioned her ears working like radar. This did absolutely nothing. What was that last sound? It was like something wet being dragged across the floor. Pam eased over onto her side. She got her legs up under her body and slowly pushed, bringing her head up over the top of the couch she and Sarah had been camped next to. There in the dark was a darker darkness. It looked to be huge. Pam tried to strain her eyes to see what it was. Reddy Jean's Pam chose that moment to fire up her lighter. The thing stood 8 feet tall, and that was bent over. It had arms like a spider, but the hands at the ends of each legs looked out of place. The creature was up on its fingertips as it scuttled along. The head was split in half, showing hundreds of sharp, pointy teeth. The tongue hung down to the floor. Pam screamed. Not the Pam with Sarah, but Pam over by the cooking ware. This was the signal for everybody to wake up and get busy running. Meek Pam froze, laying on the floor. The creature was about to pounce when three Pams grabbed her. One got her feet, and the others grabbed an arm each, and they took off running. Meek Pam would have screamed the whole way if she hadn't been passed out instead. Pam grabbed Sarah and drug her along the aisle on her blanket until it was safe to let her get to her feet. Several Pams tried to help, but just got in each other's way. What is that thing? I don't know, but I don't want to stay and find out. The two ran after the rest of the Pams. As they were exiting the department store, a second beast appeared to their left. Everybody ran to the right. Across from them, something hit the wall and was followed by the sound of breaking glass. This got everybody going even faster. Pam thought she was spending too much of her time running from things. She was glad she'd spent a lot of time running, since it had prepared her for running from these things that looked like Pam eating monsters. Sarah hadn't had as much exercise and was beginning to waver. A second Pam came to the rescue, pushing a shopping cart. Pam dumped her minion into the cart. Pam was trying to run and hold on to the side of the shopping cart when one of the monsters leaped forward and landed right in front of them. Pam veered right, but the shopping cart Pam went left. There was a crashing sound as the monster stood up to its full height, knocking down most of the ceiling tiles. Pam came skidding to a halt. "Where's Sarah?" She turned in a circle, only to come face to face with one of these tongue monsters. The long, wet, sticky tongue shot out and wrapped itself around her body. The beast began to drag her towards its gaping maw. Pam spun around. She unbuttoned her jacket as she went. The jacket vanished into the monster's mouth as Pam used her feet to push herself backwards away from this nasty thing. She was pushing with her feet, sliding on her back, and moving away from the monster when her head came to a stop as she slammed into a wall. Ouch! Man, that hurts. Pam saw stars. Her vision went all red. Something grabbed her hand. A Pam with semi-ratty jeans and a t-shirt that proclaimed, "I used up all my sick leave, so I'm calling in dead," was dragging Pam in the opposite direction from the beast with the floor-length tongue. "You know you're not supposed to feed those things." She laughed at her own joke. Pam tried to say something. She tried to say, "I need to find Sarah," but it came out as "Milfets non gratis sushi." The t-shirt Pam yanked Pam to her feet. "Can you run, or are you curious as to what that thing looks like on the inside?" She smiled wide as if thinking this was a good time for jokes. "Bap map mer surgen der no es nada." Pam had to close one eye, so there were only half as many Pams standing in front of her. A second Pam with an olive drab jacket came and grabbed Pam's other arm. "Let's go before those things see us." The two Pams half led, half carried Pam along with them. Pam allowed herself to be led through the darkness. She couldn't help but think there was something she was forgetting, something important. "Sarah! Where's Sarah?" Pam looked around her for her substitute minion. "Sarah didn't come to the mall. She went with Sandy to make her life interesting," T-shirt Pam said. "No, no, there was one Sarah. She came with another Pam, the one with the black jacket." Pam managed to get both eyes focused in the same direction at last. "Man, my head hurts." "I haven't seen a Pam in a black leather jacket either," the t-shirt Pam said. "I did see myself in a black hat once." We got separated earlier. Pam wound up with me instead. Now I've lost her out there somewhere." Pam noticed her jacket was missing. "Oh no, I've lost Wendy too." Pam ran her hands over herself to be sure the jacket was really gone. The two Pams looked at each other. If she's with a Pam, I'm sure she's being taken care of. T-shirt Pam looked around. Wendy will have to take care of herself. The creature had better be nice to her, or nothing for Christmas this year. We should get going. The trio made their way along the corridor. As they walked, Pam looked around at the stores. They were looking just a bit ragged, as if this part of the mall had been left off of the cleaning list. Soon they came upon a few others who fell in with them. The group slowly grew larger as more Pams came to join them. The stores all looked on the distinctively raggedy side. Broken windows and the things on display looked as if they'd been there for years. The lighting was getting dimmer as well. After what seemed like hours, they caught up with the main group. World leader Pam was getting everybody organized once more. Pam still felt dizzy from slamming her head into the wall. Her head was pounding and her vision was constantly going crossed. I need to find Sara. T-shirt Pam jumped up on a bench. Anyone here seen Sara? We have a Pam that's looking for her, and a big bag of marbles. I've lost my marbles. A Pam came walking over from the group. She had Sara held close to her side in an iron grip. The shopping cart just popped into my mind. I thought it would help. She didn't seem to want to relinquish her grip on Sara. Last time I used a baby stroller. Pam looked at Sara. We were being chased by a rhino gator. As the two Pams were talking, Pam noticed a black jacket coming from the crowd. Sara, I've been looking all over for you. I think I hit my head or something. Anybody got any aspirin? Man, I missed you. The black leather jacket Pam looked at the shopping cart Pam as if to say, hands off my minion, please. Sara pulled shopping cart Pam's arm from her shoulder. Thanks for saving my life. She gave Pam a hug. I'm supposed to stay with this one, I think. Sara came and stood by Pam. Black Jacket Pam looked surprised that Sara was standing so close to this other Pam. Once shopping cart Pam was back with the others, Sara said, I like you best. Well, nearly as much as my Pam. There's something about you that I like. She was now clinging to Black Jacket Pam as if her life depended on it. Pam sat down on a bench. What is it that you see in me that you don't see in the other Pams? I don't know. It's like when you're near, I can see things I can't see any other time. Like I see places that look like places I've been, only they're different. And I see you as being especially nice to the other me. She had a confused look on her face after this dissertation. Pam got busy thinking. Can you envision me with her, the other Sara? Yes, that's it. I see you with her, and it makes me feel like I'm with my Pam. Sara looked up at Black Jacket Pam, thought about it a bit. Am I becoming psychic or something? Maybe. Tell me, can you get me back to my Sara? Pam wasn't too sure where this idea was coming from, but they sounded really good coming from her. No way, I think. Well, maybe. Sara had this thinking really hard look on her face. I think maybe I could get you close. I can see a trail leading from you to the other Sara. Then you should be able to see how to get us back to our own worlds. Maybe. Hopefully. Pam looked over at World Leader Pam. We need to go talk to her. And I've lost my place. As she indicated to Pam with all the business suit Pams standing around her taking notes. Follow me. Sarah got up and walked over to the business suits. Excuse me, coming through. Somebody has an appointment. All the business suits moved and allowed Sarah, followed by Black Jacket Pam, and Pam to get close enough for a talk. So, what is it you've come up with that necessitates my full attention? World leader Pam smiled at Pam, but conveyed the feeling she was a bit annoyed. It's just that, well, you see, have you noticed how we keep getting pushed farther and farther away from the dimension store? Each time we've been attacked, they've pushed us in the direction away from where we need to be. World leader Pam looked at Pam with an inflexible stare. Then a look of disquiet came over her face. This was followed by a holy cow look. You're right. I never thought of that. I was so busy trying to avoid those things, I never thought to think why they're pushing us along, but never actually killing anyone. Pam got an inspired idea. We need to be heading the other direction so we can get back to those fitting rooms. Pam was on a roll. Or was it a donut? Sarah thinks she just might be able to point us to our home worlds as well. I never said that, did I? Sarah hoped she wasn't about to be responsible for any kind of a world class disaster. We need to come up with a plan, something that won't wind up having us all killed or worse. Pam wondered what was considered worse than being killed. When she came up with several items, it made her wish she hadn't come up with any kind of ideas. Then Pam had an idea. How about we take Sarah back to the Dimension store and try sending me back to my timeline? If it works, we'll come get y'all and send everybody back home. Great idea. How will you know if you're successful? World leader Pam didn't want any deaths on her hands. Sarah jumped in with, she goes to her timeline, looks around, comes back, and gives us the thumbs up or the thumbs down. World leader Pam didn't like it. If anybody should go, it's me. I'm responsible for everyone here, and if anybody is going to risk their life, it should be me. Pam found this just a bit high and mighty sounding. If you're responsible for all the Pams, you need to stay here. I'll go. As the words left her mouth, Pam wished she'd kept it shut. Okay, y'all go. We'll leave some kind of a sign as to where we go should we have to go. That is, go. Pam was glad to see that world leader Pam had a few idiosyncrasies. It made her a lot more like Pam. And with that, I have come to the end of another episode of The Bag Company Lost in Time. Until next time, stay tuned. This is Story Time with Chris James.